Adit, can you talk about some of the sort of major global issues at this time that are relevant for businesses in India?
I think broadly there are four global issues that we should all be aware of, and we are indeed aware of them. But what I might try and do is explain the possible impact. The first and most significant global issue that has been happening is the impeachment of President Donald Trump, um, which is likely to happen now. And the next stage is it will go to the US Senate, and in the Senate, it is unlikely that it will go through. But I think it does create disruption. It creates more divisiveness in America amongst their constituencies. And therefore, the next round of presidential elections, when they happen in a matter of a few months, will be in a more divided country. So I think these developments are very unfortunate, but that is how they are. I think the second issue is now we see a very obvious slowdown in the US economy, although certain consumption indicators are holding, but broadly the trend appears to be clear that growth has peaked.
Right.
And in 2020, it will be a little softer than the current year. And going forward, it is hard to say, but the spurt that we saw over the last few years is unlikely to be repeated, and understandably so. We've had 9 years of growth without a recession, and that's quite uncommon. Normally, you have a recession every 4 or 5 years. The big worry is in the unfortunate event that we have a trigger, and a recession does happen, then I'm not so sure that the Fed has the ammunition to do much, because usually interest rates have to fall by 4 or 5% in order to kickstart the economy.
Right.
That's one. Number two, in Europe, again, we have very significant changes. We've now got Brexit, and we've got a government and a prime minister who has been elected on the platform of taking Britain away from Europe, and they will do that in the coming weeks and months. I think that will have an impact on the way businesses are run in the UK and their exposure to European markets, because it's not very likely that a trade deal will happen before Brexit happens. And I think the amount of uncertainty that currently prevails is very worrying. Across the channel within Europe, there are significant issues that are now developing. Angela Merkel hands the baton over to her successor in Germany. She has, in fact, been the tallest leader in Europe for many years.
Right.
I think she will be succeeded in her party by Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer as the next leader of the party as well as chancellor. But we're not sure whether she will be able to control the political factions that Merkel did so beautifully over the past few years.
Absolutely.
German growth has also started to taper. I think they are sort of in a recession because they've had 2 quarters of negative growth, very nearly. And therefore, the largest economy in Europe is not in calm waters. France, which is the other large economy, is having a lot of social strife. There have been strikes all over against the pension reforms being initiated by the Élysée Palace. And I think that's clearly impacting on consumption sentiment, investor sentiment, and therefore we expect a much higher slowdown than earlier predicted by forecasting agencies if this was to continue. Italy again is in the grip of some political turmoil with a very wobbly coalition government in power, and all kinds of financial distortions in their outlook. Growth is very weak, unemployment is high. So all in all, Europe is moving from an era of relative stability and decent growth to an era which is now relatively less stable and a more worrying outlook.
I see.
In the East, in Asia Pacific, I think by and large the Asian economies are doing okay relative to others. Emerging markets are generally better off in Asia than they are in other parts of the world. But I think China is the big issue, and really this has to do with the trade war with America. And if the trade war is not resolved, and I suspect it won't in a hurry, at least until we have a new man in the White House or President Trump returns back, it is unlikely that they will find a solution in a hurry, and that will have collateral damage on a lot of the tiger economies of East Asia, including Vietnam, Some will benefit, of course, with newer investment coming out of China and moving towards Vietnam, and some will lose. So all in all, I think it's a more volatile environment, both in the real economy and also in the financial economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.